Inside the stories that affect you. This is Inside KELOLAND.
Good evening and welcome to Inside KELOLAND. It affects 4 million people worldwide, yet what triggers the onset of Parkinson's disease isn't known and there is no cure. But that doesn't mean life is over for someone diagnosed with Parkinson's. With the right medication and activity, many patients go on to live for years, but just at a slower pace. As part of Parkinson's Awareness Month, we'll share some of the options available here in KELOLAND for people diagnosed with Parkinson's and their family. Also on today's show, we are going to share the importance of getting screened early for various types of cancer. And Lutheran Social Services in Sioux Falls is launching a new campaign. We'll have those details just ahead. We'll get closer to those topics in a moment, but first, it's a scary word, one that many people don't like to think of. Yet cancer can happen to anyone, and in some cases, the type of cancer is very treatable if caught early. Joining us today to talk about the importance of early detection is Dr. Mary Milroy from the South Dakota Department of Health. Welcome.
Thank you, Brady. It's great to be here.
Well, thanks for being on with us. Well, March was Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and that happens to be the second leading cause of cancer-related death. But it doesn't have to be. What should people know?
Well, I would say that one thing that about 11 people per day in South Dakota hear the words, "You have cancer." Many different kinds, but you have cancer. And one of the things that I think is so important is that there is really a national effort right now from the Colorectal Roundtable and Task Force and the South Dakota Comprehensive Cancer Control Group to really get the word out and our goal is 80% of Americans screened by 2018.
That's a good goal.
I think that colorectal cancer is unique in the way that not only is it screening, but it can definitely be prevention. We think that if people would really learn about colorectal cancer screening, that they could actually prevent the onset of colorectal cancer. And the way you can do that is by trying to find very early precancer conditions such as polyps. And really for most people, it's just either having a colonoscopy. Well, I think first thing is you need to talk to your healthcare provider to find out if you are at average risk or if maybe you have risk factors. Maybe you have relatives who have had early onset colorectal cancer, or you carry one of the hereditary syndromes that really makes you much more at risk for colorectal cancer. You may need to have different guidelines, but for the average person, they should really start their colorectal screening at age 50. And then you can either do that with a colonoscopy, which is really kind of a flexible tube that goes up and really looks through your whole colon, or you can do something called a FIT test. And that is a fecal immunochemistry test that you can just check the stool. And that needs to be done every year. If you get a clean bill of health on your colonoscopy, you only have to do it every 10. So that's kind of nice too. But the good news is if precancerous polyps can be found, they can be removed. And fortunately, then you will never hear the words "you have colon cancer."
So this type of screening is so important because, you hear about all of these different types of screenings and why they're important. But this one, you can actually see something before it starts and,
actually prevent it.
Yes.
Many of the other cancers we don't know how to prevent. I mean, we have some pretty good ideas about how overall, certainly we should not smoke. We need to be very careful about our sun exposure. And we need to do a healthy diet, exercise, because that'll help in many things, not just cancer prevention, but heart disease, diabetes, COPD, many things. So it's generally a great idea. But many of the other cancers, other than some of those healthy living things, we don't have a good way to absolutely prevent them. If we look at cervical, cervical, actually we have HPV vaccine we can start talking about too. But really something like breast cancer, we don't know what causes it, but we certainly know that early detection makes a difference. Lung cancer, there's some new screening guidelines out. So if a person is at risk, which usually is if they've had more than a 30-pack year history of smoking, currently smoking some of those things over certain ages, then they can benefit too. So we've got some options for early detection, but you're right, colorectal is unique. We can actually get things out before they turn to cancers.
And you mentioned breast cancer, and I think earlier you talked about the age someone should be. So how old should women be for that screening?
That's actually a very good point to bring up. And I think there's so much confusion among patients. I'm a surgeon. I mainly work with breast disease and breast cancer, and I know many of my patients are very confused about that. There's different guidelines from different organizations. And I think the take-home message in that is that in the past there was a very just clear-cut, you just do this at 40. Nowadays, I think it's more, the key word is risk-appropriate screening. So it's very important to promise yourself, one, promise to be screened, and two, promise yourself to have the conversation with your healthcare provider. You need to look at your health history, you need to look at your family history, to look at the risk and benefit of screening and develop a more individualized plan. The current guideline, at least from the American Cancer Society, is that women between ages 40 and 44 should at least talk to their provider and have the option of doing screening. And then ages 45 up to about 54, they should have annual screening. And then above that, as long as the woman's in good health, should probably have a screening every other year. And mammography still is the best screening. So it really makes a difference. Women who, I guess some of the other things are, all women are at risk for breast cancer. And we do some of this health history because some women are at unusually high risk. And maybe they need to start their screening much earlier. Maybe they need to screen more often. Maybe they need to add extra modalities such as MRI. But that's something that's a very important conversation really to have with your healthcare provider. And
when you talk about the goal having 80% screened by 2018,
yes.
I mean, we want to reach this goal. So what would you tell everyone out there?
I would say that it's good to get the word out. And actually right now, the South Dakota Department of Health and the South Dakota Comprehensive Cancer Control Coalition have a new plan. And what we're doing is we're encouraging everyone to either go to getscreenedsouth.dakota.org as a website, or go to Get Screened South Dakota as a Facebook page.
There it is right there.
And there it is. Yay, you got all the information. Terrific.
We try.
Hey, thank you. Thanks. And then what you can do is there's a very interesting little video you can watch. There's so much information. If you want to see videos and updates on many different kinds of cancer, you will find them there. You can like the page, and you can take the promise to get screened. And now we have a brand new thing called a TWIBN.
Yeah, we were talking about the word TWIBN. I'm excited. So what is that?
I have to say, when they first started the social media campaign, I didn't have a clue what a TWIBN was. And I will say that I went onto my Facebook page, which my kids scold me I don't do very often, but I did. And I was able to find the TWIBN, and I added it, and I sent it to my friends, and I did not even have to call my daughters for my IT help. So if I can do it, anybody can. So we're encouraging everyone to get the word out. Don't be afraid of having colorectal screening. I think sometimes people are a little afraid to talk about the colon, the rectum, people just, it's like, don't want to talk about it. But it's really okay. And if we can save lives and prevent cancer, by goodness, we should. And we're hoping this social campaign the social media campaign absolutely goes viral.
Very good.
And in fact, I'll tell you, I had my colorectal screening just last Thursday. I had a colonoscopy. Fortunately, I had a good outcome. I don't have to have another one now for 10 years, but it wasn't so bad at all.
Well, that's important to know, and thank you for sharing that with us and talking about screenings with us.
Oh, thank you so much for covering this really important topic.
It is.
So thank you so much.
Well, thank you again. All right, we are going to take a quick break. Stay with us inside KELOLAND. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside KELOLAND. Every year, about 60,000 Americans are diagnosed with Parkinson's. It's a disease that attacks the brain, affecting a person's ability to regulate their movements and emotions. While there is no cure, there are various forms of treatment for a person dealing with Parkinson's. Joining us today to talk about those and the disease in general is Janie Case, the Executive Director of South Dakota's Parkinson Foundation, and dance instructor Amanda Hahn. Thank you both for being on with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when we think about people, including Michael J. Fox and Robin Williams, I think a lot of people kind of have an idea or think they have an idea of what Parkinson's is. But what are some of the symptoms in general, and maybe some that people don't know about?
Sure, there are so many different symptoms when it comes to Parkinson's disease, and it affects individuals so differently. I think that's what we really need to keep in mind. Even when diagnosing Parkinson's disease, they don't necessarily just look at one symptom. There's 4 common ones that I'll kind of mention here that they look at, and to even consider Parkinson's disease, they want you to at least be experiencing 2 of those. And so the common ones that we often think about are the tremors or the shaking.
Right.
But what is really interesting is not everybody experiences that. You know, there might be people who are affected by this disease that don't have any tremors. And so you really need to keep that in mind and look at the other symptoms. Another one is the slowness in movement. They notice a big difference just getting out of bed or getting dressed, speaking, because again, it's affecting the brain and it's affecting the ability to move. And so stiffness can be another one in the arms, legs, hips. It can be one side of the body or it can be both. And so you need to look at that as well. And then another one that's a big concern is balance issues. Just trying to move and keep that balance. They kind of feel that it's off a little bit. And so they really look at those. Those are the main ones that they look at, but there's so many other ones that some people don't even know. When you talk about Parkinson's, it's if you have loss of smell. That can be one that's really interesting. Yeah, if you can't smell, you know, strong foods like ripe bananas or just the scent of licorice or something like that, that could be a symptom. Your handwriting becomes much smaller. That was an interesting one to me that I wasn't aware of when I first started working with Parkinson's. Is it just becomes much smaller, bunched together, and oftentimes difficult to even read.
Okay.
So, you know, those are just different ones. You know, difficulty sleeping, since it affects emotions. A mask face is what we call it, one of the symptoms. People think that they might be upset or angry, where it's not that. They just are unable to express those emotions because they can't express in their face. So if something's funny or they're just having a good day, they're not able to smile. And so you have to pay attention to those smaller symptoms that might be related to Parkinson's.
Yeah, so with all of that in mind, is it tough to diagnose them? Because maybe, like, people might be having these for a while, but they're waiting to have those tremors and they might not get them. So is it hard to diagnose because people might not know what they're dealing with?
It can be, and a lot of people aren't diagnosed until later on in life. And once it's interesting because once they receive that diagnosis, they can look back and they can think of those symptoms and they're like, yes, I was experiencing that, but I had no idea that it could be related to Parkinson's disease. And so that's why they always say, you know, if you have one symptom, we're not necessarily going to say, yes, it's Parkinson's. We really want to look at all of them and see what you are experiencing and how it's affecting you in your day-to-day living.
And I have some questions for Amanda, but before we get into some of the therapies people can do, what is available for people dealing with it in terms of medication or treatment?
Sure. And our mission at the South Dakota Parkinson Foundation is to improve quality of life. Since there is no cure for it, we really look at that day-to-day living and what can we do and offer that's going to help you in that quality of life. And so we offer many different programs and services available. Medication is a huge part of it, of course, and that's just finding the right neurologist that you can work with and finding the right type of med, the right type of dosage to help with those symptoms. But some of the different programs that we offer, we are big advocates for exercise. You know, exercise is important for anybody in their daily living. And it's especially important for somebody affected by Parkinson that affects their movement. It affects their muscle mass. So we want to make sure we keep that strength and keep that muscle mass strong. And so we have different exercise programs throughout. In Sioux Falls alone, we have one called NeuroFit that's at Dalrymple Village. That's for people who have Parkinson's and MS. They come together and do different forms of exercise that again can improve the balance, can improve strength in different areas. We also, Avera Therapy offers a program, exercise, different stations that they can do again to work on those issues that are concerning to Parkinson's disease. They have a great exercise that they do with boxing. Boxing is sometimes very therapeutic for people who are affected by Parkinson's. And so they also offer swimming. Swimming can be something. And so and then our newest one, which we're excited that we have Amanda here, is our dance that we just started here in January. So it's kind of new, but it has really taken off.
So how can dancing help someone who is dealing with Parkinson's?
Dancing has just been amazing to bring imagery, music, emotion all together. It almost creates a new map or a new pathway for the brain to communicate with the rest of the body. As people getting stuck in their kitchen trying to get around the counter, there's a little rock step that we do to move around, and all of a sudden they get a beat in their head and they're moving again. Articulation with the feet, we do tap combinations, both seated and standing, things that they might have never thought they could do before. Putting a beat to eating, picking up your fork and put it in your mouth. They're making, after 12 weeks, they're making everyday movements into dances that help them throughout their day.
Retraining themselves.
Yeah. Things that become automatic. It's just been a blessing.
Yeah, and we're running out of time, but quick, there are some events coming up. In April is Parkinson's Awareness Month.
Yes. So we have one coming up that is our Stampede Night, where you can just come out, enjoy a Stampede game. That's on April 5th. A portion of the proceeds then go to benefit our walk that happens every August. We put on a big fundraiser event, and so it just helps with that. But our biggest one that we have that I wanted to mention was our Parkinson's Awareness Conference that we have on April 23rd. That's our biggest educational event that we put on during the year, where we bring in speakers from all around, covering a variety of different topics pertaining to Parkinson's. So it's just a great time to come and not only meet new people, but see what's available out there for you, again, to help with that quality of life.
And I have to wrap up, but for anyone who's dealing with Parkinson's, is it important to have patience with them and to be kind to them, because it's a lot to deal with?
Yes, because again, you have to keep in mind Parkinson's affects the brain, and so just slowing down and giving people that respect is very important.
Very important. Thank you both so much for talking about this with us.
Thank you.
And we will be right back with Inside KELOLAND after this. Welcome back to Inside KELOLAND. Lutheran Social Services of South Dakota is working to expand its services in Sioux Falls. The Sioux Falls Chamber Community Appeals Campaign officially kicks off tomorrow. To talk about the campaign, we are joined today by LSS Vice President Development and Foundation Bill Peterson and Campus on East Bank Campaign Co-Chair Tom Dempster. Thanks for being on with us.
Thank you for having us.
So in case anyone's not familiar, how does LSS help people in this area?
Well, Brady, we are one of the oldest, one of the largest, and one of the most diverse agencies serving the state of South Dakota. We're 96 years old, having gotten our start in 1920. And last year alone, we touched the lives of over 50,700 South Dakotans through our multiple services. They include individual and family counseling, financial counseling, refugee resettlement, foster care, adoption, mentoring, and many, many more.
Right. A lot of services to do a lot of good work.
A lot of services to do a lot of good work. We are probably one of the largest, one of the broadest based, and certainly one of the oldest service agencies working with South Dakota.
Right, and that's so exciting to see the operation growing, and this very exciting campaign, the Chamber of Commerce Community Appeals Campaign. Had to make sure I said that right.
Yeah, you did, and it was perfect, Brady. Thank you for doing that. And I just wanted to express a word of thanks and a word of gratitude about the Community Appeals Campaign. There's all sorts of things, as you well know, there's all sorts of things that make this an extraordinary town. And the Community Appeals Campaign is one of those things that does. Here's what happens. The Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce says, we have a process that you go through, and if you're selected to be a Community Appeals Campaign campaign, and it's always a competitive thing, then that says to the Chamber of Commerce that we recognize that the services and your needs are a priority for this community, which is a very significant thing in and of itself. But the second thing that they do is they say, we're a group of business and professional leaders. We give you access, and not only do we give you our sanction, but we also give you access to our members so that you can have a successful campaign. And the other thing that they do as part of that process, and one of those things that makes this such an extraordinary town that it is it says, not only do we give you access to our members, but we'll also help you lead and staff your campaign. It's truly an extraordinary thing, and one of those things that absolutely sets the city apart from others.
So it's really bridging a gap between our community resources and providing those connections to make some of these things happen.
It builds bridges all over the place.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Well, speaking of bridges and building them, we're building we're expanding to the East Bank. We're a new campus, and it's a building that I think a lot of people might be familiar with, but we can take a look at, hey, there it is.
And that's what it'll look like after we occupy it. This is the former Killeen Community College on 6th Street in downtown Sioux Falls. We've purchased that building. We will refresh and refurbish it both on the inside and the out. And it will house the following programs for LSS: our counseling services, our Center for Financial Resources, our Center for New Americans, our mentoring program, our fatherhood and reentry services, which is a program where we work with men who are transitioning out of the prison system to reconnect them with their families and to help them develop job skills, and eventually our administrative offices as well. And what it does for us is one of the dreams and opportunities that we have been looking for is to have this single-purpose facility that would house multiple programs. Currently, those programs are located in the industrial park on Main Avenue and 41st Street here in Sioux Falls. And it's difficult many times for our clients to be able to access them. Putting them in one convenient downtown location is going to help us serve our clients better, help serve Sioux Falls better, and South Dakota better.
Over the past 3 or 4 years, Bill, how many different sites have we looked at? Like 15 different sites? 19 different sites. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, everything kind of came to coalesce together, come together with this building, and it's absolutely the perfect site for us.
It was meant to be, I guess.
Yeah,
It truly was meant to be.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the convenience of having everything in the same spot for people.
And efficiency, by the way.
And efficiency, yes. Is that a very real struggle? Do you hear stories from people saying, I couldn't get to this place and I couldn't get to that place?
You know, a lot of the clients that we serve are dependent on public transportation. And so if they have to make multiple changes on buses to get to our services, they're not likely to want to even try to access them. Oftentimes, also, we find that if a client comes in for one service, say counseling, we might find they have another need, like financial counseling. By able to have those services located in one convenient spot, we simply can walk down a hall to be able to get them to the services they need, as opposed to putting them back in their car, putting them in the bus and sending them someplace else. And
so, in getting back to what we started with, the campaign, how long is this going to last, and how can people find out more about it?
Well, overall, the campaign's a $5.4 million campaign, of which we hope to raise $1.25 million from the business community. We're actually going to launch it tomorrow. It will be our official kickoff, and it will run through July 31st of this year.
Very good. It's an exciting time to be in this city, and see a lot of the growth and partnerships. What does it mean to you to see that over the years?
I've been a Sioux Falls resident for a very long period of time. One of the things that the city has always done is done a fabulous job, and we're nationally recognized that for incorporating all sorts of people within our community that makes this a better that makes this a better place to live.
Yeah, and so, does it make you smile knowing that these types of partnerships are helping the people who need it most?
You know, the Chamber of Commerce here in Sioux Falls does something unique through this community appeals process. You don't really see it in the rest of the country, but they have really partnered with social service agencies throughout the years to allow the social service agencies to be able to do the bricks and mortar projects that allow them to really serve their clientele. And I can tell you that the support that we've received from the Chamber, from individual community leaders and business leaders as we've gone out and talked about our campaign, has been nothing less than heartwarming.
Very good. Well, thank you both very much. Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you
for the invitation.
We're going to take a break. Stay with us. That's all the time we have for today. Be sure to join us again next week for more on what's going on inside KELOLAND.